It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Hint Hive, Amplifying Women's Voices. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, Queen Bee of this hive, your resident feminist life coach and psychotherapist, here to drop truth bombs, sip some tea, and walk this wild road of womanhood with you. We talk power, pain, patriarchy, and the kind of healing that makes us unstoppable. So let's get into it. Today, we're cracking open a topic that hits hard, stings deep, and honestly, doesn't get talked about nearly enough. The Sisterhood Betrayal. Yep, we're diving into why women sometimes undermine each other, where this toxic pattern comes from, how it's been embedded in our culture for centuries, and, most importantly, how the hell we start to heal it, both as individuals and as a collective. All right, ladies, let's be real. We've all felt it. That sting when another woman throws shade, gossips, competes instead of collaborates, or subtly tears us down instead of lifting us up. It cuts differently when it comes from someone who should be an ally. And let's be even more real. Maybe you've caught yourself doing it. Maybe it was subtle. An eye roll, a judgmental thought, a withheld compliment. It's okay. This is a judgment-free zone. We are not here to shame. We are here to understand, own our patterns, and evolve. So where does it come from? Why do we sometimes turn on each other when we should be each other's fiercest protectors and hype women? Let's talk psychology behind the betrayal. So first things first, this behavior is not because women are inherently dramatic, catty, or mean. That tired stereotype is pure patriarchal propaganda, and we are done believing it. What we're actually dealing with here is deeply rooted cultural conditioning and trauma. So let's break it down. According to the theory of internalized misogyny, many women unconsciously absorb and adopt the sexist, limiting beliefs that they have been surrounded by their entire lives. These aren't just random thoughts. They're deeply embedded societal messages that have been reinforced by the patriarchy for generations. These beliefs whisper, and sometimes scream, that we are less intelligent, less capable, less worthy than men. That our value lies in how we look, how agreeable we are, and how well we perform emotional labor. And, perhaps most dangerously, that other women are competition. That if she succeeds, we lose. That there's only so much space, so much attention, so much love to go around. This lie has saturated every layer of our experience. From childhood fairy tales, where the villain is always a jealous woman, to religious teachings that place women in submissive roles, to toxic workplace cultures that pit us against each other, and even into our most intimate friendships. It's not just a belief. It's a survival strategy we have been conditioned to adopt. But once we see it for what it is, we can begin to unlearn it. We have been fed stories over and over that there can only be one woman at the table, one queen bee, one it girl, one token female success story. This isn't just a narrative. It's a survival script designed by patriarchal systems to keep us competing instead of connecting. It creates a culture of manufactured scarcity where the default setting becomes, if she rises, I fall. That, my friends, is a lie, plain and simple, but a powerful one. When opportunities for leadership, power, or recognition feel artificially limited, because they often are, we end up internalizing the idea that there's not enough room for all of us. And when we feel like we're fighting for scraps, that is when the betrayal begins. Not because we're inherently untrustworthy, but because we are trying to survive inside a system that was never designed with our collective empowerment in mind. And don't even get me started on the cool girl complex. You know the one. The woman who proudly proclaims, I'm not like other girls, or I just get along better with guys. Let's be clear, that's not authenticity. That's the internalized patriarchy in stilettos. It's a defense mechanism that we have been conditioned to adopt. One that teaches us to distance ourselves from our own gender in order to be more palatable, more likable, more desirable, especially to men. It rewards disconnection and punishes solidarity. The cool girl persona tells us that femininity is frivolous, that closeness with other women is drama, that power comes from being the exception, not the rule. And here's the truth. It's not just hurting the women who lean into it. It's hurting all of us by reinforcing a culture that devalues women as a whole. When we separate ourselves from our sisters in order to gain individual status, we weaken the collective force of our power. So no more performing to fit a mold that was never made for our liberation. Because together we rise. Now let's talk about how it shows up, because the sisterhood wound does not always show up as a simple slap in the face, as clear as day, right? Often it's way more subtle and insidious. So here are some ways that it might creep into our lives. Gossip and judgment masked as concern. You know, the whole, I'm just worried about her line, when what's really happening is subtle character assassination. This is when so-called care is actually a way to elevate ourselves by pointing out another woman's flaws or choices under the guise of compassion. It feels righteous, but it's rooted in competition and control, not genuine support. Another one is withholding support, praise, or credit. You know, those moments when we could cheer another woman on, but we don't. When we scroll past her big announcement without engaging, or downplay her accomplishments in our minds. Sometimes we even convince ourselves she doesn't need the encouragement. But let's be honest, that silence can speak volumes. Every single time we withhold recognition, we participate in the very culture that tells women that they are not worthy of being celebrated. And don't get me wrong, this isn't about fake flattery. It's about choosing connection over competition and contribution over quiet resentment. And the next way that it shows up is passive-aggressive compliments. You know the kind, like, you're so brave for wearing that, which sounds like praise on the surface, but underneath, it's shade. It's the kind of backhanded comment that masks judgment in faux encouragement. These comments reinforce subtle policing of how women show up in the world. What we wear, how loud we are, how bold we dare to be. It's a micro-undermining that chips away at confidence while pretending to be supportive. And yeah, it's time to call it out and cut it out. And the next way that this wound can show up is silent comparison or one-upping. Those unspoken mental competitions where we measure ourselves against another woman's looks, achievements, lifestyle, or even her confidence. Now, it doesn't come out as direct sabotage. It's more like the quiet voice that says, "She's ahead of me," or "I need to prove I'm better." It can even sneak into our compliments, offering praise that's secretly laced with envy or self-doubt. These mental games might seem harmless, but they chip away at authentic connection and keep us in scarcity mode. Instead of celebrating one another, we keep score. And honestly, nobody wins at that game. So the antidote? Awareness and gratitude. Start noticing when it happens and then shift from comparison to inspiration. If she can, so can I. And the next way that betrayal can show up is ghosting instead of communicating hurt. This one, it's sneaky and it's common. Instead of addressing the conflict, hurt, or misunderstanding directly, we go silent. We disappear. And while sometimes we do need space for our own healing or boundaries, ghosting as a way to avoid vulnerability or accountability, it creates more harm than it prevents. It leaves the other woman confused, hurt, and often blaming herself. Communication is hard, but silence does not heal wounds. It just hides them. Let's challenge ourselves to speak, to stay, to show up, even if the conversation is messy, because that's where the real healing begins. Another way the betrayal shows up is feeling threatened by another woman's success or confidence. It's more common than we like to admit, but it's also one of the most misunderstood parts of the sisterhood wound. When another woman walks boldly in her power, gets the promotion, nails the presentation, or just radiates self-assured energy, it can stir up a storm inside of us. Insecurity, envy, even resentment. Not because she did anything wrong, but because her shine reminds us of the parts of ourselves we haven't fully owned yet. Her success becomes a mirror for our self-doubt. But here's the truth bomb. Feeling threatened does not make you a bad feminist or a bad friend. It makes you human. The key is what you do with that feeling. Use it as a flashlight, not a weapon. Ask yourself, what is this reaction trying to tell me? What part of me wants more expression, validation, or freedom? Then, instead of dimming her light, let it inspire you to turn yours up too. Because confidence is contagious. So catch it. Don't kill it. And the last way that the betrayal shows up that I'm going to go over today is pretending that we don't care. Acting like we're unfazed, indifferent, or totally cool with it, when deep down, we feel abandoned, unchosen, or completely gutted. It's the emotional armor that we throw on to protect our pride, to avoid the vulnerability of saying, that actually really hurt. But ignoring our true feelings doesn't make the pain go away. It just buries it deeper, where it festers. That betrayal still lives in our bodies, our relationships, our defensiveness. And the real healing begins when we stop faking indifference and start honoring our emotional truth. Now, this isn't about pointing fingers, because I've struggled with some of these myself. It's about getting radically honest with ourselves and each other, because once we can name it, we can start to shift it. once I became an empowered and more confident person, that's when I started being able to empower and inspire confidence in others. So, what is the path to healing? Well, we're going to talk about solutions now because we're not just here to vent. We are here to transform. So I'm going to talk about 6 steps to start healing the sisterhood wound and rebuild true, deep, empowered connection. Step number 1, name it. Call it out, loud and clear. When you catch that twinge of jealousy, that whisper of comparison, or that shadow of mistrust creeping in, don't push it down. Name it. Say it out loud if you need to. Bring that feeling out of the fog and into full focus. You might say to yourself, okay, I'm feeling competitive right now. Where is this coming from? What triggered me? That moment of honest awareness without shame or defensiveness is the first domino in dismantling the whole toxic chain. It's how we shift from unconscious reaction to conscious transformation. Because you can't heal what you won't name. And naming it, that's where your power begins. Step number 2, get curious, not judgmental. Most of our reactions, especially the ones that feel outsized or surprising, are rooted in old unhealed wounds. They're echoes of past experiences, moments where we felt unseen, unloved, unworthy, or even betrayed. So instead of shaming yourself or someone else for how you're feeling or reacting, pause and get curious. Ask yourself, where's this coming from? Is this really about the present moment, or is it awakening something deeper? Was there a time in your past when you were excluded from a group you wanted to belong to? Overlooked when you were desperate to be acknowledged? Judged unfairly for simply being yourself? Or maybe someone close to you betrayed your trust in a way that made you start questioning everyone around you. These moments, they leave imprints, and those imprints often guide our emotional responses until we bring them into the light. That insight, that inner detective work, can be the golden key to healing the deeper hurt. When we tend to the root instead of just trimming the weeds, we begin to free ourselves and others from cycles of pain. That's the part of my work that I do with people in therapy and coaching that I really love. I love diving deep and getting to the root. Step number 3, rewire the scarcity story. There is not just one spot at the table. Ladies, there is room for all of us. When another woman shines, it does not dim your light. It just means that the room gets brighter. Start celebrating others as practice for celebrating yourself. Step number 4, practice radical sisterhood. Hype her the hell up. Celebrate her hustle out loud. Share her brilliance. Send that unapologetic "I see you, sis" DM. Be the kind of woman who claps the loudest when another woman wins and offers a soft place to land when she falls. Sisterhood isn't some feel-good slogan. It's an act of rebellion in a world that profits off of our disconnection. So make it loud. Make it daily. Make it sacred. Step number 5, repair what's broken. We all mess up because we're human. If you've hurt another woman, don't dodge it. Own it. Apologize with heart, not ego. If you've been hurt, choose communication over silent resentment. Forgiveness does not erase the harm. It reclaims your power. It's not about letting someone off the hook. It's about letting yourself off the emotional leash of anger and hurt. It's about choosing growth over grudges. And finally, step 6, build empowered circles. Like the Hint Hive. Am I right, ladies? Find or create spaces where women uplift instead of compete, where truth is a currency, boundaries are gospel, and vulnerability is honored as strength. These aren't just feel-good gatherings. They are radical incubators for revolution. They don't just heal us. They fuel our fire to rise, roar, and reshape the damn world. All right, Hive. This week's quote comes from the brilliant Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She says, "Of course I'm not worried about intimidating men. The type of man who will be intimidated by me is exactly the type of man I have no interest in." Now, I'm going to read that again, and I'm going to swap out man for woman. Of course, I'm not worried about intimidating women. The type of women who will be intimidated by me is exactly the type of woman I have no interest in. Ladies, if your brilliance intimidates another woman, that's about her, not you. And if you feel intimidated by another woman's confidence, that's a signal to get curious and grow, not tear her down. We rise by lifting each other unapologetically. We shatter old narratives by choosing truth over comfort. We reclaim sisterhood by honoring it as the revolution it truly is. All right, Hive fam, here's your mission this week, and I mean this from the heart. Reach out to one woman in your life. Maybe it's even someone you admire from afar. Maybe it's someone you've avoided because you felt insecure. Maybe it's someone you had beef with 5 years ago. Send her a message, a compliment, a thank you, a peace offering. Let her know you see her and you are choosing sisterhood. And as always, if this episode sparked something in you, share it, post it, talk about it. Start the conversations that help us all heal. And if you haven't yet, leave a review. Those few seconds help this community grow and thrive. And of course, come on over to our Facebook group, the Hint Hive Podcast, and start connecting with other amazing women. Ladies, join the revolution. We are going to change the world one sister at a time. Until next time, keep being bold, brilliant, and unbreakable. You are not alone. You never were. And together, we are unstoppable. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out kellymhint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out thecrankycounselor.com.